Alright, we are trying something new. Remember Wednesday, where I relive my glory days when I used to be good at magic. Uh, for this episode, we are looking at Simic or blue-green mid-range decks, or Simic tempo decks. And our first deck lands on a favorite deck of mine, blue-green mid-range in Mirrodin Block Constructed. And so the story goes is Arcbound Ravager and Affinity were running rampant in Standard and in Block. And so in an effort to try and brew something new, my playtest group and I stumbled upon blue-green mid-range. So we have blue for counter magic. I've started as a predominantly blue magic player, and then green was added because of the value that it gives us, especially in this set. Mirrodin being an artifact block, we wanted green for the artifact hate. So for our counter magic, we have 4 Condescends, which also gets you some scry ability. And also Serum Visions allows you to scry as well. Now look at this mana base. 12 islands and 10 forests. That'll never happen again. The idea of the deck is that, well, everyone's going to be running artifact lands, so I'm going to run Maindeck March of the Machines as a good start, and then hopefully have enough business to get there. And the business being Eternal Witness to get something back and beat for 2, Solemn Simulacrum for extra ramp and then just value of card draw, Troll Ascetic, very difficult for decks to deal with, also regenerates, can't really be targeted by your opponent. Before Hexproof was a thing, it was Troll Ascetic, Troll Shroud. We also have Maindeck Viridian Shaman to come into play and take something out. Our tempo play, Echoing Truth, so we can bounce multiple things if there's more than one of that type in play. Vidalcan Mastermind was the technology at the time. A 1-2 for 2, it beats for 1, and then you can also bounce things back to your hand. So you can rinse, repeat Viridian Shaman, rinse, repeat Solemn, rinse, repeat Eternal Witness. And you can do that either end of turn or before damage, or after damage was on the stack at the time, but before damage resolved. And then we also have Acquire in the main, in case you want to go steal someone's Darksteel Colossus at the time. And then what really made the deck shine is Vidalcan Shackles. Unopposed Vidalcan Shackles would grind your opponent to dust. Sideboard, we have Annul for more artifact and enchantment hate. Last Word, just additional counter magic. Oxidize, a fast artifact hate spell. Vex, a counter spell that is really terrible, but it's better than being tooth and nailed. And then Creeping Mold for land destruction for those Cloud Posts or those Urza lands. So this was my deck for a very long time, both in block and in standard. As you can see, it's very much block except for the creeping molds. But this was the deck that got me my first GPT Grand Prix Trial Top 8, and I won 2 boxes of Fifth Dawn, which were garbage cards at the time, and now they're actually worth something, so yay me. And then also, props to my playtest partner Marco, if you're watching this. We were playtesting many days, and on the day we came up with this build and just concluded that it was really good, we go to the Grand Prix Zurich results. And what is the breakout deck? It is Crystal Witness. But I'll never understand why, if you're in an artifact block and artifact removal is everywhere, why would you run Crystal Shard when you can run Vidalcan Mastermind. It gets on board a turn sooner, and it also beats for 1. Good times. And then we also have, fast forward to Khans of Tarkir Standard, or Tarkir Standard, Dragons of Tarkir. We tried our blue-green prowess again. So this deck, what we have here is we want to make a morph deck. So Obscuring Ether is a very fancy crap rare. It's a 1-drop, but it makes your face down creature spells cost 1 less. So you can do turn 1 Obscuring Ether, turn 2 morph, which seems like a good place to start. Also, when you're out of cards in your hand, Obscuring Ether can turn itself into a face down creature. And so what does this deck have to morph? Well, we have Death Mist Raptor, which was insane at the time. It has Death Touch, and it comes back from the graveyard whenever you morph. And you can also Megamorph it as well to give it a 1/1 counter. Then we have Den Protector, which is like the morphing Eternal Witness. We have Stratus Dancer, which is a morphing counterspell. And we have Ice Feather Aven, which is a morphing bounce spell. So creatures with abilities that are what you want to do in these colors. Then also another morph creature is Rattleclaw Mystic, which is also a ramp mana dork as well. So the purpose of this deck is to, in an ideal situation, you do turn 1 Obscuring Ether. Turn 2, the best turn 2 drop is a Death Mist Raptor because worst case scenario, it dies, but it will shortly come back from the graveyard with its ability. And then also we have Eldrazi Sky Spawner. So this deck shines the most in the tempo format, in which you control the board state, and if your opponent misses a play or a creature play, you can take control of the board for just enough time for your creatures to skate to victory. So with turn 2 Death Mist Raptor, we have turn 3 another morph creature, leaving back Dispel to counter removal spells. Creatures you can fly over, or you can also use your Ghostfire Blades equipping on your morph creatures so they can get big, and you don't even have to show what those creatures are. And then if you do, sometimes once the Ghost Blade is equipped, you flip the creature over for the effect, and then they might be a flyer like Stratus Dancer. Also, Eldrazi Sky Spawner is also colorless, so it wears the Ghostfire Blade well. The Eldrazi Scion also, in addition to wearing the sword well, is more so for extra ramp, so you can always have 1 or 2 mana floating or available to either morph or cast your counterspell. Also in the deck, the top of the deck, we have Whisperwood Elemental, with left unchecked, can just flood the board with free creatures. And then also Clever Impersonator. Never underestimate the power of the clone effect. This can copy any non-land permanent, including planeswalkers. So, really good card in a format in which everyone was playing 2-color or 3-color dragon decks. You were able to flood the board and then win the game. The mana base, we have doing a little bit better on less basics. We have 7 forests and 7 islands, but also we have Lumbering Falls, the Manland, and you have a Maya Coast as well. What did we play in the sideboard? Oh, we have Hornet's Nest for a ground way to deter your opponents from attacking. Profaner of the Dead, a way to exploit a creature, and you can bounce all creatures your opponents have with toughness less than the exploited creature's toughness. So it's a one-sided bounce, provided that your opponent's creatures are within range, and also beats for 3 as well. We also have Reality Smasher. If you look up to the top, we have Yavimaya Coast and Eldrazi's Sky Spawner as ways to get your colorless mana for your Eldrazi's. So you can catch people off guard with a Reality Smasher. It's big, it tramples, and it's difficult to get rid of with spot removal. We also have Ether Spouts as our blue board wipe. You can catch someone off guard with that. Display of Dominance to get rid of blue or black permanents, most likely planeswalkers, or protect your permanents from removal spells. Return to the Earth, as everyone was playing dragons. It's good to have a card that just destroys a dragon. Incidentally, it can also hit artifacts and enchantments. Displacement Wave is a great way to also do a one-sided bounce if you have the mana cost in your favor. Not so good against dragons, but good against other aggressive decks at the time. And then lastly, we have Encase in Ice to tap down a red or green creature, and it stays that way. So the story behind this deck is I was brewing some other garbage decks, and I went with my good friend to a... what were they called at the time? I think it was a PPTQ. I went to a PPTQ, and I used this deck, and I did not do so hot, pretty mediocre. And then my friend and I went to another PPTQ the following week, and he made the top 4, and I thought, oh, maybe I should run this deck in the next PPTQ, and then I did, and made the top 8. Good times. And if you're watching Telos, thank you for the help. Alright, well this is just a where I'll stop. I think the purpose is to relive some Magic memories, but also have a good survey in deck building and brewing. We have 2 similar decks with similar ideas. Blue-green is always appealing to me because counterspells can counter most things, and then green has the ability to deal with any other type of permanent. So never count out blue-green midrange. Thanks for watching and have a good day.